my name is Jana Hope. I am an artist with Chameleon Pens and the creator of this digital download called Sneaking a Nap. Today I'm going to show you how I use Chameleon Pens to color this download. So for reference, this is the colored version, and as you can see, it's got a lot of really great texture in the fur. That's a pretty fun and easy technique that I'll show you how to do. Little grass and a little bit of yellow in the fur to make it look like an afternoon nap with a nice sunny glow. So to get started, you are going to want your digital download. I printed 4 to a page on standard copy paper. That is about 8.5 by 11 here in the States. I just cut this guy out so it's nice and small. I can work with one. If I make a mistake, I can use the other 3 options I've got. With your digital download, nice scrap piece of paper. This is a great way to test the intensity of color when you fuse your pens before you lay it on the download itself. And then we're going to need our 7 colors, which are going to be YO3, that's Warm Sunset, RD4, that is Crimson Red, Hot Cocoa, which is BR2, that's going to be strictly in the texture technique, so we'll see how that gets used. It'll be fun. And then CG8, that's Cool Gray, PK3, Bubblegum Pink. Of course, you could use green, grass green, but I'm going to go with Spring Meadow on this one. That's YG3. And then NU3, that's our fawn color. Alright, let's get started. We're going to work from the body and then do the grass and the flowers last. Okay, so to get started, the first color we're going to need is the RD4. That is our Crimson Red. We're going to be breaking the body up by shading it in smaller shapes. So we're going to start with the head, and we're going to actually break the head up into 2 shapes. One's that round part, ignoring the ears for now, and then the second part's going to be that nose there. So we're going to need a fairly good fuse for this nice long one. Go ahead and just pop your mixing chamber on the top of your pen. We're going to let this sit for anywhere between 25 to 35 seconds. Of course, you want to be safe than sorry, so we're going to actually stop at 25 seconds, and we're going to use our test sheet of paper, and we are going to test out the color before we put it on our digital download so that we know exactly what's going on there. And that's about 25 seconds now, so stop your watch, pop that right off. And we are using the brush nib, which is going to give us a really smooth gradation here. And I like turning mine around. You're going to see this go in circles throughout this video because I like pulling towards myself as it gets darker. I just find it an easier way to do it. When we do this, we're going to actually not go right up to this line here. The reason we're not going to do that is because we want the nice light color. So we're going to start at the ear, and we're going to just follow the shape of the head down to where the other eye would be, and we're going to just fuse it down. And we're going to work across the eyes here. We're not going to go down into that nose quite yet. Now it's into that big, beautiful, rich red color now. Perfect. So that's the first shape in the head. Now we're going to do another 25-second fuse for this. I don't think we'll need more than 25, but again, we will test before. Now when we do the nose, we're going to do it the opposite way because we want that highlight on the top of the nose here, and again, going back darker into as it goes lower on the face. So we're going to leave kind of a triangle shape here. See where the nose is? We're going to leave a triangle shape so that white is showing through and there's no hints of color. And we're going to work in curves. is fused very equally on both sides, and that happens. Not a big deal, pretty easy to fix actually. So you can see there that it doesn't quite match up with what's by the eye. What we're going to do is we're going to just do a really short fuse, a couple of seconds, and we're just going to fuse it in that little area so that it kind of matches up there. That's about 3 seconds, which should be good. So yes, and we're going to start this closer to here. Alright, much better. Much better. And that color is going to blend right into the nose there. It's okay that it's not perfect, because again, that texture technique that we're going to do for the fur next is, after we do the yellow, is going to really cover up any streaks, anything imperfect, any of that kind of stuff. Next, we're going to start working on the body with this triangle right behind the head, right by that ear, just kind of cut off there. So this one, you're going to want a decent fuse. Let's do this one for 15 seconds and then we'll test it and see if we like that. Now this doesn't need to be as light because more of the highlight's going to be on the center of the back here. Alright, so let's give that a test. And I actually did more about 20 seconds and that was definitely too long. So just do a couple scribbles on your spare page until you get a little bit more pigmentation going. And we're going to work from the top of the back towards the head. And yes, you can go right up to the line here. You don't need to be leaving a gap here because it's not going to be as light as the center of the back. There you go. And that part's done. Now the next portion is our biggest portion, and that's this stomach and back part here. We're going to kind of draw out a line and continue this line on very faintly to break off the leg because we don't want to do that yet. That's going to be a separate coloring. Okay, so now we are moving into the stomach and the back here in this main part of the body. This is our biggest portion, so we are actually going to give it a really nice and long fuse for about 30 seconds to start, and we're going to test it, and we want it to almost be invisible. Because this is the largest portion, you're going to want the longest fuse. So after 30 seconds, if we still see a little bit too much richness, a little bit too much color, we're going to go back and we're going to give it another 10 seconds, a full 10 seconds. And that is super duper light now. I really like that. So let's see what we got. Yes, that is practically invisible. What we are going to do first, before we start coloring, is we're going to make an invisible line for the leg. And this is going to just give us a mental note for where that leg stops. And you can kind of see that just kind of invisibly there. And we're going to start on that back, and we're going to work our way back. And we're not going to go full up to the top yet. We're going to do that in the second half of this. Awesome. Perfect. So we've got the leg just barely marked out there. And now let's do that second half of the back, the top half. And this one, we are going to go just a straight 40-second fuse before we do anything else. I know that sounds kind of crazy. Don't worry about it. It'll look beautiful once you're done. So a nice, long fuse. Okay, so that's 40 seconds. And that is almost colorless on the tip. So let's do it. We're going to again leave a little bit of a gap where no color is going to be showing on the very tip of the back there. It's in my invisible line. And now we're going to work on the coloring. Now as you come up on that invisible line, it's going to be getting pretty dark. That's okay. Now is the time to really define that line in. And we're going to go color on top of color to make this tummy area pretty dark. I'm going to turn this around so you can see it nicely. Remember, color on color, when you use the same color, is going to make it a smidgen darker. It's pretty subtle, but it's going to be noticeable enough to give it a nice... Awesome. So that is our Foxy so far. Next, we're going to do this leg. Pretty much the exact same way we've done everything else. A little white gap on top and then all the way down. Now intentionally on this leg, I'm leaving gaps. I'm going to show you how I cover those with my technique for fur. So you see, I'm purposely doing this imperfectly. The nice thing about that is fur is imperfect. That's going to give it a much more realistic kind of texture. So, now we're going to do 2 sections for the tail. That's going to be right here underneath the white portion of the tail and then on the big fluffy part. This, we're going to go about 35 seconds and we're going to check on the color after that. What we want to do first is the section closest to his leg, and we're going to invisibly lock in that other shape too while we're here. Okay, and 35 seconds have passed. Let's see where we're at. Beautiful. Looks nice and light, so we're going to make an invisible line for that shape, and we're going to make a visible line for the highlight. So, if you can see that, 2 invisible lines, quote unquote, they're actually just tiny hints of color, and we're going to start coloring it like normal, following the shape that we made. And you're going to see it's not quite as perfect of a line. Breaking up those shapes, that's fine. We'll work with it. So now for the second one, this is a little bit bigger, but luckily with these darker lines in here, those black lines, you're not going to see much difference. But we're going to go another 35 seconds on this. And we're going to just color it just like normal. We are going to leave a little bit of gap only on this part though. I'll show you when I do that. Okay, and we are at about 35 seconds for that fuse. And we are looking nice and light, so let's get started on that second portion of the tail. Again, leaving a kind of invisible mark for that white so that we can have the yellow come in and be the highlight in those portions. And there's seams, there's lines, don't worry about that. The yellow is going to blend some of that, but the texture is going to hide anything else. Now that we are done with our red for now, we're going to set that aside. We are going to pull out our Y03, that is our warm sunset, and we're going to pretty much do exactly the same thing as we did with the red, but we're going to go right up to the lines and we're going to cover all of those white spots. And you're going to see it's going to get a really beautiful, nice coloration. So again, brush nib is the one you want here, and nice long fuses. And there we go. The base of the fur is done. So if you don't want to use any texture at this point, you're totally welcome to just skip the next part and shoot straight over to the grass. And alright, my friends, now it's time for that beautiful, beautiful texture. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the bullet nib for this. We are going to be fusing it, but we're going to be doing light little small strokes with it instead of kind of filling stuff in. So, to start, we're going to start with the red. Yes, we've already done this. Yes, you're going to lose some of your lines. It's okay. It's totally okay. So, go ahead and fuse this. This does not need to be an exact science. 5 to 15 seconds, however long you really want to do it is up to you. Again, this is kind of a random thing. And when we get this fused, which this has been a couple of seconds, I'm going to test it out, and yep, just barely color showing. We're going to make little light lines, and we're going to go from light to dark here. So, just like you would coloring it in, but this time we're going to do, and just totally random, and go in the direction that you want to imagine the fur is going. Now, bullet nib is nice and stiff, so it's going to get really great small detail lines that are very subtle to see, but will really, in the big picture, make a nice fur kind of texture. So, I may have did that a little long. That's 16 seconds. The nice thing about this part is you can hop around. The other color I'm going to use for this is the BR2, that's the hot cocoa. The reason I'm using that color over the bark is the fact that it's got a more orange tone, whereas the bark is really dark, and I just think it would be a little bit too dark for this kind of image, unless you wanted your fox to look like it was sleeping at night, which is totally cool too, but I want mine to be taking a day nap. Okay, so I'm probably going to go back through with this red once I get my darker shadows done with the hot cocoa. But for now, that's good. And this is where we're looking so far right now. Not super intense yet. So, let's get that cocoa brown, bullet nib again, and we're going to fuse it. This one we're only going to need like 5 seconds. Not very much at all, because we're going to be focusing on the shadows in this one. But we do want to have it in the lighter areas when it is a lighter tone, because that's going to give us continuity. That's going to make it look like this brown belongs and not just kind of hodgepodge thrown in there, you know. And fuse again, another couple of seconds. This is getting darker a little bit faster, so we're getting a real kind of feel for what it's going to look like here. Just like 7 seconds on that. And you want to start in the lightest parts and work your way out with those tiny little lines. Teeny tiny little strokes. Now at this point, because you've got this dark brown, you can reinforce the line of the leg here. This is going to make that leg really pop off of the body. So it looks real 3D-like. Just like that. And to kind of hide that, you're going to do some more lines, lots and lots of little lines, and that's gonna kind of blend it right in with the rest of everything else. I really want to focus that brown in the center here because this is the darkest part. So you can kind of scribble it in and color it there. Okay, now we're going to continue with that detail pen with those small strokes working light to dark. So very subtle, very quick. And at this point, if you don't think you put enough red, or you don't think, or you have a lot of gaps in your strokes, then you at this point can go through and be like, oh, little line through that gap, little line through that gap, and kind of cover them up. You can also go back through the red and do red lines throughout this so that you can get that realistic shading. Okay, you know, I think I'm pretty much done with my texture there. I could go back in with red if I want to, but I am actually pretty happy with how this guy is turning out so far. So here's the textured fur now. See lots of little tiny lines, very subtle, nothing too crazy, but really, really nice feel to it. So what we're going to do now is the ears and then the face, the chin and tip of the tail. So to do the ears, we're actually going to go back with our RD4, but this time we are going to use the bullet nib again, just like we did with the detail. The reason we're doing this is just because this is a tighter, smaller spot. The brush would work really nicely here. We are trying to get a nice gradation, but the brush nib, because it's a little bit larger, it's meant for larger areas, so smaller spaces like these ears, the bullet nib just makes more sense. You're not going to need a crazy long fuse on this. I'm not even using my timer. Just a couple of seconds is all you need. I think that was 3 or 4 seconds. Then we're going to work from the top and work down. Because these are smaller areas, they're really easy to blend into the rest of the head. So, see how we got our hint of red there? We're going to want a little more red on this side of the ear, so I'm going to go through and do little dots along that edge. Alright, so we're going to do the same thing. Again, just a couple of seconds, probably 3 or 4, because it didn't get fully back to color on the other ear, so, yep, that should be good. And we're going to work here back. Fantastic. And then last but not least, of course, to match the ears to the head, we are going to add a little bit of that warm sunset. This, we're not going to fuse our bullet nib. We're just going to lay it right on top. Fusing and gradiating the red will actually still look like it's got some dimension when we lay this over top. It'll show through. Perfect. So now his ears are done, and we're gonna do the exact same detailing technique with the bullet nib with the CG gray. Taking this cool gray and doing this is going to be a really subtle way to add texture into these blank white spots. We're not going to be laying in a whole lot of color here. I mean, we're talking maybe a dozen strokes in total. So we're going to fuse this because we want really nice, light, subtle grays in here. So, just like before, very small, light, very small strokes. This is actually going to be even smaller strokes than we were doing before because it's a smaller area. So, remember, go with the how you imagine the fur to be going on the face. And as we get closer to the nose, you're going to do more strokes and closer together. because, of course, there's going to be more of a shadow in there. Alright, and that's really subtle, but I bet you can see that. You don't want a whole lot going on here. Now that I have this pretty much back to the full gray, I'm going to go through and add a little bit more dimension on the edge of the face here where I think there's going to be shadow, and where the tail and on the bottom of the chin here, where the tail and the chin kind of touch. Awesome. So, just like that. Now we're going to do the same thing with the tail, with the top being lightest and the darkest being towards the bottom here. And the fur is all done. It was as simple as that. You know, one thing I don't like though about that tail is it just kind of abruptly stops before it goes into the white part. I'm going to fix that with a couple of strokes of my red with the bullet nib, and I'm just going to flick it up into the tail so they kind of look like they naturally flow together. That's a subtle change. You really don't have to do it that way, but I think it looks a little bit better. So that's how the final one looks. Perfect. And so now let's move on to the flowers and the grass. For the flowers, we're going to do straight color on top of color. No fusing, no messing around, no fussing. So we're going to take our PK3, that is our bubblegum pink. Really love this color, actually. I didn't think I would because it's such an intense color, or it's so you know, bright compared to the natural things I like to do, but I love this freaking color. So what we're going to do is we're going to go right into these little dots here, and we're just going to color them pink. Beautiful. We're even going to go in the ear and pop that in there. Alright, now that we're done with the PK3, let's pull out our fawn, the NU3. And we're going to do this right on top. So again, with the bullet nib, with that fawn color, and we're going to just lay it right on top of the pink. So the pink is a little bright here. When you put this fawn on top, it makes a whole new color, this kind of neutral pink. Really nice. Alright, so brand spanking new color, almost a mauve color when you do the fawn and the pink together. Fawn and bubblegum, excuse me. Now, last but not least, we have our Spring Meadow, the YG3. This, because the grass is a little thin, we are going to use the bullet nib again for this. We are going to want to fuse it, but this fusion's going to probably take a whole whopping 6 seconds or so. Doing the same thing. And you'll notice when I get to the bottom, I'm kind of scribbling and really getting that color in there. That's because I want it to be nice and dark near the base where the fox is. This little piece here, I'm not going to do a fuse because it's just so tiny, so I'm just going to take my color and I'm going to lay it right in. You know, I'm not going to fuse for this piece either because it's behind everything, so it's going to be dark. And full color. And now we're going to fuse it for about 5 seconds for the one big piece of grass next to the fox. Awesome. And probably 3-4 seconds for this other piece of grass, and then I'm probably going to just do it solid on that last piece. Now we have a beautifully colored Sneaking a Nap digital download using Chameleon pens. Just 7 colors, and it's absolutely adorable. Super easy to do. Thank you so much for watching.